All right, good evening. We'll begin shortly here. Okay. Looks like we're ready. So good evening. It's April 14th, 2021. We're going to begin the Reading Conservation Commission meeting. It's been, I think, an extra week since the last time we met, so we may need a little bit of a refresher on a couple of these items, and I think a little bit more happened with site visits in between the last meeting. But before we start, I'm going to turn it over to our administrator, Chuck Tironi, to explain how the meeting will work and go over a little bit of the rules. Chuck.
Sure. Okay, so hello everyone. This is Chuck Tironi, Reading Conservation Administrator. Consistent with the governor's order suspending certain provisions of the open meeting law and allowing us to adhere to social distancing requirements during the COVID-19 crisis, this Town of Reading Conservation Commission meeting is being held virtually via Zoom for audio and visual participation of the Conservation Commissions, applicants and their representatives, and the public. During this meeting, myself or the chair will unmute commissioners, applicants, and representatives and members of the public as needed. During the commission meeting, the chair or the administrator will be the only ones permitted to share the video. These controls are in place to ensure that tonight's meeting is safe and effective. At this time, Chair Michael Flynn will do a roll call count to confirm that members are present and can hear him.
All right, thank you. Members, please remember this order. This is the order that we'll end up voting in. I'm Michael Flynn, Chair. Anika?
Anika Scanlon, Vice Chair.
Carl?
Carl Sacconi, Member.
Dave?
David Pennett, Member.
John?
John Sullivan, Member.
Scott?
Scott Keith, Member.
And Martha?
Martha Moore, Member.
All right.
Thank you, everyone. Please note that this meeting is being recorded. Also, be aware that other folks may be able to see you. Anything that you broadcast can be captured by the recording. All of the materials for this meeting are available on the Conservation Division page, and I recommend that commission members and the public follow the agenda as posted on the Town of Reading website unless otherwise noted. However, because this meeting is being conducted remotely, I advise applicants in particular that the commission cannot discuss or consider documents which are not previously posted. Information may, however, be presented orally. Members of the public are encouraged to provide written public comment, but should understand that not all participants nor all commission members will be able to see any written comments during this the course of this meeting. Before we get to tonight's agenda, I'm going to cover some ground rules for effective and clear conduct of business and ensure that accurate meeting minutes. For any response, please wait until the chair or the administrator yield the floor to you and then state your name before speaking. After the commissioner makes their remarks and these have been addressed by the applicant, the chair or the administrator will afford the public comment as follows. The chair, the administrator will first ask the members of the public who wish to speak to identify themselves by name. Once the chair or the administrator has the list of the public, the chair will call on each one and afford them 4 minutes for comment. The applicant may request to respond. After the public comments, the chair will once again go down the list of commissioners, inviting them by name to provide further comment, questions, or motions. Please hold until your name is called. Finally, each vote that is taken tonight will be conducted by roll call. That's all there is, Chair Flynn.
All right, thank you, Chuck. I know Chuck has said this, but it's always worth repeating. The items that we're going through tonight are you're available to follow along on the agenda that's posted on the division webpage. And if at any time you feel like you didn't have a chance to provide a comment, you can always go there and email the commission, email the administrator. Access to the email is on the division webpage as well. So we'll start with the first item on the agenda. This is 550 West Street. This is a continued public meeting on an RDA filed by Scott Harris under the Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Reading Wetland Protection Bylaw, Section 7.1. Just to give a quick recap of where we left the last meeting, the proposal was to remove several potentially hazardous pines in the rear and side of the property. It was I forget the exact number that we had, but a significant amount of trees. And what we had coordinated with the applicant was a site visit. We did end up doing that site visit, I think it was 3 weeks ago now, 2 weeks ago. I've lost track of time here. At the site visit was myself, Martha, Carl, the applicant, Chuck Taroni, and we were able to walk the site, walk through both areas, take some measurements from what we suspect is the wetland line to the tree lines and see what's out there. Martha, I don't know if you're there available. Do you want to give just kind of a quick recap of the site visit and what we saw?
Sure, I'll do my best.
Yeah.
There were a large number of very tall pines in the side yard and backyard of the house, and some of them are already dead. And we asked the applicant to mark on his plan which ones were dead at this point as opposed to the ones that were alive. And it's not shown on the plan, but there is an area that Chuck thought is likely to be a vernal pool, and he measured the distance from that vernal pool to the trees that were looking like they needed to be removed. And I think it was just over 100 feet. I don't remember much else except for there was definitely poison ivy growing up some of those trees. And there were some understory plants as well as the pines in the area.
Thanks, Martha. Carl, anything else that you recall or want to have from the site visit?
That I recall, I think just, the quantity of the size of the area in general. But there was some, and we did measure, like Martha said, we measured some of the, wetland, distances to kind of understand where some of the trees might lie. And I think maybe my big takeaway, I guess, from there was that there was probably 7 or 8 maybe dead trees on the plan that could be otherwise represented as dead, not kind of a living tree, which might help. And then there was a pretty, I think, nice understory that if, depending on what happens, I think, that things would hopefully kind of take off from there. So I guess that was a big takeaway.
Chuck, do you have the latest plan that we could bring up?
I do.
We can turn it over to Mr. Harris in a second.
Sure. Yep. I can bring up the plan now if that's what you'd like.
Yeah, please. So just from the measurement standpoint, and I think Martha kind of hinted this, but we took some measurements in the I guess we'll call it the top of the page here near the Aberjona. And I think in general, the distance from the wetland was right around 25 feet, Chuck. 20, I think in the back corner, It was 25. I think it might have gone to 32 at one point, but then back down to 25, essentially where that red line is. In the back, it varied as you get, as you move south, it moves away from the wetland line, gets further and further away. I believe it started around 32, and I think at the bottom of the page there, I think it was, I don't know, Chuck, if you've got the number in front, but it's like 40 or 45 is what I recall.
It was in the 40s, yeah.
And then, yeah, we ended up taking a measurement to what looked like a suspected vernal pool, and that was over 100 feet away. Mr. Hare, so I think that kind of summed up what we had seen. I mean, just to add to what Martha and Carl had said, it's a big area. It's a lot of trees. It's kind of, I think I expected that and knew that already. I will say when I first showed up, we were in the front driveway, and then I think it was a relatively windy day, not horribly, but you could see the pines in the front, and the top of the page on the near West Street were blowing in the wind and clamping against each other. And I mean, it's an intimidating sound, and I get that feeling that Mr. Harris had explained to us the last time. But it's also a big habitat area, and there's a lot there. There's a lot that we're proposing to change in the area. Was kind of my takeaways. Chuck, do you have anything to add about the site visit before we turn over to Mr. Harris?
I'd only add that I believe a lot of the understory was buckthorn,
Buckthorn.
and so that's not helpful.
Yeah.
And there was pine too, but there was a lot of buckthorn.
Yeah. Mr. Harris, so you were able to send us a plan. One of the things we'd asked, and Martha mentioned this, one of the things we asked was, we had seen a lot of dead trees out there. You did a good job kind of doing an inventory on the amount of trees that were out there within this area. And one of the things we asked you to do ahead of the meeting was just kind of mark down which ones you thought were already dead, because there were a significant amount that were dead already. Is there anything else, any other changes that you've done here, or any other thoughts on what you presented for the project?
No, I mean, honestly, Michael, I just went in and I checked the dead trees. I actually found 19. So I think the original count I had on the plan was 109. So now it would be down to 90. And then I know when we were looking, there were the three kind of smaller yew trees that during the site visit I mentioned, those aren't really posing any type of a safety concern. So they're still indicated on the plan, but those could be 3 trees that would come off as well.
Okay.
So but other than that, I didn't make any further changes.
I guess before we get into comments, any other questions from the commission or comments? No. I guess what I can start with is, I think we said this. I think I mentioned this out at the site. I don't remember if I said this at the last meeting, but I've been on the commission for 6 years, and I don't know that I've ever had something brought in front of me that has been so much, land clearing in this close to the wetland. I think as I mentioned, as we stood out there and you heard the pines rattling around, I get the reasoning behind this and what we're looking to do. My take after the site visit, and even with 90 trees still left, is that if we're looking to do this full project, that this requires professional to understand what's in the understory, what would take, and probably give some good recommendations as to what would need to go back. I think we're not talking about putting back, and I say this as someone that doesn't have the technical background to say this, but my guess is we're not talking about putting back 90 trees to recreate some habitat, because there is understory, there is stuff that'll take off. But I think it needs professional. My take is that it needs a professional touch to understand what needs to be put back, what would take, how much, and what density, or even if it's very little at all, would need to be put back. Does anybody have any thoughts on that, or?
I guess, yeah, Mike, like one thing with Tuckland site was that, you know, certain trees and or evergreen trees or pines would just, you know, someday just kind of get 80 or 90 feet tall again, maybe mixing in some sort of deciduous layer along with the understory pines. But I do think it would be nice to know of what, you know, the horticulturist thought.
Anika?
Thanks, Mike. Yeah, I thought you were going to go down like a roll call
Oh,
to
sorry.
ask for comments. So I was kind of waiting for that, but that's all right. Yeah, at this point, this is still to me, is still a significant modification of the buffer zone to warrant a notice of intent. And to also look a little bit further into the vernal pool. I mean, I know it could potentially be 100 feet away, but based on my recollection, and I'll have to go back and double check this because we don't do a lot of vernal pool review very often, but I think there's actually a bigger than 100-foot buffer from a vernal pool that we have to consider. And so I think, you know, we should be, if we're going to consider that vernal pool and apply those standards, we need to have a little bit more information on that.
Thanks, Mika. Dave or John?
Just was wondering if there was anything further from an arborist, from the applicant, as far as what assessment an arborist has done on the property as to what were considered trees that are beyond their, you know, useful life, what trees are dangerous, when trees, you know, should come down, could come down. I didn't know whether there was that had been done yet. I know it was discussed in the last meeting. I don't know whether there's been any movement on that at this point.
No, David, I actually was trying to get an arborist out for the site meeting with the commission from 2 weeks ago, and unfortunately their schedule just didn't work. And so after the meeting, I just kind of was waiting to see what happened at this meeting in terms of what the next steps were going to be.
Okay.
Yeah. John?
I think we've covered everything that I had, so nothing more from me.
And then Martha or Scott?
I'm wondering whether this project would require a wildlife habitat evaluation. As I was learning about in Fundamentals 202 training last night, it reminded me of this project when they were talking about looking at what the habitat value is of a property. And I don't know, I haven't figured out whether this is close enough to the wetland that it would fall under that jurisdiction.
Chuck, do you know? I don't know that we've ever.
Oh, so in the riverfront, there would be, you could ask for a habitat evaluation. So it's probably not all in the riverfront, but it would be covered for sure. You have that option. So what I meant
Scott?
by that is the entire lot's probably not in the 200-foot riverfront, but there's a lot of it
Yeah.
that is.
It doesn't sound like anyone on the commission has seen such like an immense amount of clearing proposed on other projects, but I was wondering, are there any comparable sort of, proposals that we've seen in somewhat recent times, and how those were handled and treated?
And Nika, you have the most experience on the.
Now granted, my memory isn't the best, but I haven't seen anything, nothing really comes to mind.
Yeah.
In terms of a similar project. I mean, usually a lot of proposed projects are, to use loose terms, would be considered a small taking of a couple of trees or an expansion of a lawn or an expansion of a structure, as you've already seen in a number of meetings. I think this is kind of a new situation that we're seeing here. So, in considering the standards of the Wetlands Protection Act and the interests we're trying to protect, I think we need to provide, before we're going to approve anything close to 109, 90 trees, we would have to understand how the taking of the 90 trees would affect the interests of the act, and all the different interests of the act, from groundwater protection to flooding to habitat, all those 7 interests, I believe. So we'd have to do, I think this requires a much more involved review.
Yeah,
so we can apply the
Nika,
standards.
I agree with you. I think we're heading. My take is that I'm heading to a spot where I feel like we're heading to a greater review. I think the one thing that I would offer and consider, and I think I mentioned this when we were out there, is from the applicant standpoint, this obviously puts the project in a longer review timeline. We're looking for someone to review the habitat area, review the area, the trees, what could be put back. In the short term, if there are, and I don't have a number offhand that I would limit this to, but like if there were 5 trees that you felt like, or an arborist felt like these are real hazards that would need some immediate attention, whether that's under this RDA or coming back under an RDA, I think that's something that I don't think I would have an issue of, like, if that's the Band-Aid to start, and while an NOI gets dealt with, that's something that's in the magnitude of what our typical RDA sees, and something that I could get behind if you're looking like, well, these ones in the very front are the ones that I just know that they keep me up at night, or there's wherever it is, if that's something that you wanted to come in the short term to get while the NOI is developed, then that'd be something I'd be interested. I don't know if the rest of the commission, what they think about that, but that'd be something that'd definitely be entertained.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would second that, Mike.
All right. Mr. Harris, any other thoughts or comments? I think, I don't think I think we're headed towards a motion at this point on the RDA, but I don't know if there's any other.
No, just to your last point there, Mike, honestly, 5 trees really isn't going to do much. I mean, just looking in the immediate right next to the side of the house, there's far more than 5 trees there. So 5
Understood.
isn't really going to do anything. And I
Yeah.
mentioned to you guys, that were out at the site visit, there was the 1-year-old out in Townsend who got struck by a tree and died. So that's just why I originally presented this project, and just wanted to make note of that in the public hearing here.
And Mike, can I just add to that? I think that we do noted that there are much more than 5 trees. But Mike, are you just saying that if an immediate response versus the longer route, if we could identify just immediately any trees that are dying or in bad form or something, you know, right? That's more what you're saying, right? We could kind of expedite that process, right? So
Correct.
we do understand
I
that there's
don't,
more than, right, 5 trees is not a big dent, but if there's 5 trees that are severely compromised that we can't see right now, that we could at least just move forward on, right? In other words.
no, exactly, Carl. I don't want something that an arborist comes through and says, oh, this needs to be handled like today,
Right.
to stall, you know, at the NOI, you know, to be stalled because it's in an NOI, or you're Mr. Harris is starting to figure out, like, how can I get a professional to look at whether it's the habitat or whatever the case is.
Right.
So yeah, no, I get that 5 is not going to cover the 90 that you feel is, you know, you put a dent in the 90 that you're looking to get. But at least from the standpoint of trying to find some sort of, you know, these are ones that, even if it's not today on this RDA, you know, if it were to come back in the midst of getting the NOI, you know, it's something I think at the very least I know I would consider. So. All right. Any other comments from the commission? Chuck, do you have anything?
I don't. I would only add that if an arborist goes out there and identifies some trees that need to come down post haste, they just call, you know, even while the arborist is on site. And it's the same thing we told the tree warden. You know, he's identifying a tree. You know, we were trying to figure out how long does it take to mobilize and get out there. So I'm assuming there's going to be a couple days or something like that. But I'm always available through email, my iPad, and trees that are declared by a professional to be a hazard can come right down without any of this process that we're going through tonight.
Thank you, Chuck. Any other questions or comments? Anything else? Anything from the public? All right. Then, I mean, I think at this point, I feel like I'm getting the flavor that we're ready for a motion. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion to continue 550 West Street.
Second.
Would it be? So, so Dave, would this be a continue, or are we? Go ahead, Anika.
I'd also like to make a a motion to issue a positive determination.
So you have a motion on the floor. You got to handle Dave's first.
Okay.
First. So I guess we'll open the discussion. Dave, I think at this point, my feelings are that this is the amount of work that's proposed to be done here, that this would rise to the level of a notice of intent. Not that the work can't be done, but it's got to be done with the thought of a professional and meeting the intent of the Wetlands Protection Act.
The only reason why I made a motion to continue is I believe there are some things that Mr. Harris has made mention of that he's very concerned both for his and his family's safety and the safety of his property. So I think that we should make some kind of accommodation as a commission to make some kind of arrangement so that perhaps he can do something to mitigate his fears on his property for both himself and his property without going through the entire NOI process to remove some of the trees, maybe not remove all of the trees, but remove some of the trees that are the biggest hazards that he has identified that he has the most concern about. You know, and I understand about, you know, the entire process of going through the NOI and so forth, but I think I mentioned the continuance so that perhaps he can get an LSP out there and an arborist to make some kind of a determination that would be available for the commission to make a decision should he be able to maybe decide that he wants to do something fairly quickly to take out some of the largest offending trees and then look at the remainder of the trees at some other point in the future. I don't think either one of them has to be done all as one or the other.
Chuck, and I mean, I think, Chuck, you had just kind of described this. If an arborist went out there and said, these are immediate hazards and here's why would that still come in front of the commission? I mean, or is that generally done? Yeah.
That doesn't come in front of the commission. I think the commission, from what I'm getting from Dave, the commission needs to understand whether they want to offer 5 trees or wait for an evaluation and they would consider more trees. I mean, there were several commission members at the site visit. These are, you know, tall, straight pines. I don't think many of them, I can't remember one, there must have been one at least that was a co-dominant leader. Those are usually the issue trees. They're all tall, they're all swaying in the wind. I mean, that's what I saw. If there was something that needed to come down immediately, that could, if there was 20 that needed to come down immediately, and an arborist, you know, kind of made that statement and could verify that with me, they could take them all down. I mean, a hazardous tree is a hazardous tree. We don't stand in front of that for process.
Right.
So I believe the commission would think, is it 5 or is it more? Or from the site visit, you know, what was the health of the tree? What were the health of the trees that were out there? I mean, that's all I can offer.
Yeah, I wasn't with the rest of the commission on the site visit because I was out of state at the time, but I did visit Mr. Harris's property and took a look around and viewed all the trees that he indicated to me that he felt, well, I mean, to put it bluntly, he was afraid of. So, I mean, that's in his eyes, not our eyes. So if he's got children that are in the backyard of his house or prevented from going in the backyard of his house because he's afraid of these trees, you know, I think that's, you know, that's his feeling. But, you know, I think we also, from what we've done in the past, we also rely on what a professional arborist has recommended and assessed by doing a site visit. So that's the only thing that I'm saying about that. Is, you know, it could take, you know, a lot longer to go through the entire NOI process, and maybe that's something that, looking at what he's facing, that maybe, you know, we could. That's why I asked for continuance, because if he can get the certified arborist there to designate which trees are the biggest hazard to his property, his the inhabitants of the property, then I think that's looking at. So if he doesn't have to go through the commission, if the arborist said that yes, these trees are dangerous and they should come down, then perhaps that's the other way around it. So then if that's the case, then I would just say that I would go with Anika's motion. So just making sure that Mr. Harris understands that, you know, if he goes through the process of having the trees that he wishes to take down sooner, that he has that possibility of having the trees inspected and designated as hazard trees by a certified arborist.
Okay. So I feel like we've completely, and maybe I did this too with the 5 tree cut, but like, I feel like we've now muddied the water of, are we going to issue a continuance? Are we going to say that 5 is acceptable? Are we going to say, I mean, I think we've already, the easy piece that I think is that I think Chuck has identified is that if we get a letter from an arborist saying that these are,
Yep.
you know, immediate hazards, that's not a process that
Yep.
it needs to come before us again.
Okay.
I think if we're going to say 5, whether or not our arborist came to us, you know, that we generally look for an arborist letter, but whether or not an arborist said that these were immediate hazards, that if there were 5 that needed to come down, that we would just, that's part of our normal RDA, and we would have some sort of, I think, motion to approve that. Or Chuck, maybe that's not on this RDA. We just give you the like.
So
I hesitate to issue a. Go ahead.
I think you're making it more complicated. I think there's a motion on the floor. Just find out if the other commissioners want to continue.
Do I hear a second on the continuance? Let's deal with Dave's first.
Yeah, it was seconded by Carl.
Okay.
Okay.
You want? I will actually rescind my motion.
Okay.
Given the explanation as to what can be utilized, so that the applicant can take other means if he feels the need to do so.
All right. Thanks, Dave. Anika, do you want to try one more time? Try one more time.
Okay. Let's see if I can get the words right. So I would like to make a motion to issue a positive determination on 550 West Street.
Second.
Hold right there.
Michael Flynn.
So, so in the discussion point that sometimes happens in between I'm just going to clarify it. So the positive determination would be checking off number 4, which means the work is in the buffer zone, but the commission is determined through this conversation and through this meeting that work in the buffer zone would alter the resource area. And also to check off number 2, which says that we're not verifying the wetland line with this determination. Is that, I mean, these are pre-canned. It's not like we can write something in. This is the one that's closest. It's works in the buffer zone. The feeling is that it will alter the resource area. That's number 4. And number 2 is we're not going to verify the wetland line. So it would be a positive determination and checking off number 4 and number 2. No one has to repeat that. I'm sure it'll be picked up in the minutes.
All right. Thank you, Chuck. Michael Flynn, in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Thanks, Mike.
Carl? Go ahead, Dave. Well, we can get Carl at the end.
David Panett in favor.
John Sullivan in
If you don't
favor.
need to go ahead.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Scott?
Keith in favor.
Arthur Moore in favor.
All right. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Harris.
Thank you.
All right. All right, moving on to the next item on the agenda, 67 Belmont Street. This is a continued public hearing for a notice of intent filed under the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the bylaws, Section 7.1. This was for the construction of an addition, deck, site grading within the 200-foot riverfront area, and a portion within the 100-foot buffer zone to the BPW. You know, as we've said on the previous meetings, the application and site plans can be viewed on the Conservation Division webpage on the current project. You can follow along on the agenda. This is Assessor's Map 28, Lot 24, DEP file number 2700744. Chuck,
Yes.
do you mind giving a quick recap? This is now, I think I said, we're 3 weeks since we had the last meeting. I forget where we left this one.
Sure. So, so the commission asked for a couple of, for an updated plan, and so I got an email from missed his name. No, it was Jack Sullivan, and he says that discussed at the last meeting, he's the proposed enhancement plantings as shown within the existing lawn area within 35 feet of the wetland resource area. 3 different shrubs were selected out of the town's recommended list. The shrubs are shown in on the plan in the legend. And I thought there was something about they're going to go with a drip trench. Maybe Mr. McConnell could help us out with that, just to make sure, because I know that came up too. We were wondering about infiltration or a drip trench. And Anika had that comment. So I'm going to bring up the plan, and I think that most of what the commission has asked for is here. I can see that the 1,000-gallon concrete dry well is still in place. So here's the enhanced planting area within the 35 foot.
Chuck, was this the one that we had? Anika, maybe you recall. I thought it was a different one that was the drip trench, because
it might have been, yeah, it might have been our last one. Gray
I could be
Coach.
wrong.
Drip trench was on Gray Coach Lane.
Yeah, Triglione on Gray Coach had a drip trench.
Yeah, because the elevations here seem to make sense for this, right? If this is at around 93, 94, I think it goes down a few feet before it gets into the wetland elevation. I think there's a little bit more room on this one.
Yeah, 3 different shrubs. Let's see what those were. Low bush blueberry, sweet, summer sweet, and spice bush. So quantities of 5, 3, and 3.
Mr. Monagle, maybe you know, were there any other changes? I see Jack's email here, and I think that sums it up. But sorry, you there?
Oh, there we go. Yep, I was trying to chat you, but no, this looks like everything that Jack sent over, and it was always the dry well. I didn't know anything about what they're talking about, so I think that's on somebody else's plan. What it was the tree was coming out. We were going to plant 1 tree in the back. I think we wanted some more plantings in the back, which Jack, we went over the town's list where we came up with those. I believe it's 5, 11. Yep, right in that area.
Here they are, right here.
And that was, I think, what was asked from the commission, that would come back with some more plantings, and then would be okay with that if this looked good to you tonight.
And the updated plan.
Yep, and with this is the updated plan, correct?
All right. Any comments from the commission? I'm not going to do a roll call here. I think this is. Go ahead, Anika.
I don't want to go backwards, but I do see that the dry well is about it's like it's going to be installed at a elevation of under a ground elevation of 93, and the wetland line is somewhere around 89 plus or minus, I think, if I have that close, which means we got 4 feet between the wetland line and the top of ground at the 1,000 gallon concrete dry well. So even if it was a different project, I guess I have a similar question. Like, is this dry well, what are the dimensions of this dry well? That's my question.
I only know it's the 1,000 gallon container. I don't know the exact dimensions of it.
Okay. Because if it's installed like in water, it's not going to work so well as a dry well. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I would figure that Jack took that into consideration when he put this in here in the plan, where he had it in the yard.
Yeah. And he may have had a certain type of dry well with certain dimensions in mind. So it's a little thing, but I would appreciate a follow-up on that.
So there doesn't seem to be accurate elevations down by the wetland area. That's where I see the 89 right here in the corner. I don't see it.
It's near the planted tree. If you look at that,
Yeah.
like one of the proposed trees, and you look really,
Keep on
really
going up.
carefully.
Oh, right there.
Yeah.
Oh, I
It
see.
says
89,
89 times 3.
It looks to me like there's a line that says edge of lawn. And if you follow that line along, you get to 85.7. Is that an elevation or something completely different?
It's
That's the
89, and
distance.
that's ground. Oh, sorry.
That's the distance
ahead, Chuck.
between, yeah, the distance between the wetland and the proposed addition.
Okay. Thank you.
Oh.
So, yeah, you guys know many of these also. We accept these dry wells, and I'm just thinking of a way that you could move forward.
Yeah.
We accept both, and you might just have some sort of clause that if it ends up not being enough separation between groundwater, putting in a drip trench is acceptable.
Yep.
Yeah, I agree, Chuck. I think there's a way to move forward with this and just put that as whether it's a condition that make sure that's evaluated and that a drip trench would be acceptable. I think that's a way to kind of keep this moving forward, because otherwise, I think this is relatively straightforward. And I think that's how we left it at the last meeting, is that we felt like it was the distance away. It's within 200 feet of the river, but in general, there's not a whole lot that's going on here. So
Could it be phrased, if you guys want to move forward, could it be phrased something like if Jack, so the reasoning behind this is that the order of conditions is prepared and packaged. And so if Jack could just kind of inform us of which one he's going to use at the when he does his certificate of compliance, is that okay? I'm okay with either one of them, or I could change the order of conditions to say both are acceptable. But it seems like both are acceptable. It's just, is one in writing?
Chuck, would you, I guess, if rather than the certificate of compliance, is there, on this notice of intent, do we still have the condition that you would go out and inspect the, well, Jack's usually not like that. He's not out there for something like that.
I could give Jack a call and let him know. He seems pretty sure. I mean, I remember at 1312 Main Street where he was he didn't have it on his plan and didn't think it was going to work. So,
Yep.
and I think I could say that about Jack, and he's not here tonight. But it does give him the option, and I can let him know that through an email.
Yeah, I think that's fine as long as they told us which way so yeah, I think what I'd like to have you do is have you follow up just so it's not something that gets lost, right? That we say this tonight and it's not something that anybody thinks about until the certificate of compliance comes up. That, oh yeah, we were supposed to ask, Jack to just confirm. I think if they can notify us that the certificate of compliance, which one was chosen, I think either would be acceptable. But we should, if we could just follow up with Jack to say, hey, can you just confirm that this is the right solution? But the commission is fine with the drip trench if that's an alternative that would work better.
Yeah, keep us in the loop, or verify at that point of decision where you've decided to either use the drip trench or the concrete dry well. If you guys, come up with some language that works with that tonight, then it seems to me that I wouldn't need him to do a minor plan change, whichever one he decides, and then we would be aware of it and could pick it up at the certificate of compliance.
Anika?
Yeah, if you can just tell him that we need, there's a variety of different dry well designs that I'm sure he could select from that would fit the situation. So if he could just provide the spec for what was actually installed for that at the certificate of compliance. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay. All right. All right. Any other items from the commission? Any items from the public? Lost my view here. All right. I'm hearing none. Do I hear a motion then? Go ahead, Anika.
Can I ask if we closed this? No.
We haven't.
So I'll make a motion.
Meeting.
I'll make a motion to close 67 Belmont Street, notice of intent. Do I need to read out the notice of intent?
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Michael Flynn in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
Bennett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Keith in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
All right. Any discussion from the commission, and otherwise, do I hear another motion? Go ahead, Anika.
I heard someone else talking, so I was going to let them make a motion to issue an order of conditions for 67 Belmont Street, DEP file number 270-0744.
As amended.
As amended.
Second.
Michael Flynn in favor.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
David Bennett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
All right. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So
have a good one.
Do I have it clear that Jack would just send over the dimensions of the dry well and the elevations, and that would be suffice of what you need?
I see Anika's shaking her head.
Well, I'd prefer to get like a spec, but if you want some flexibility in what you decide to actually buy and install, you could say, depth not to exceed, like just give a general description, even if it's handwritten on a piece of paper of like the basin itself, the infiltration is going to be no more than this. And this, like he said on his plan, 6 inches of crushed stone. And we know this is not going to be full of groundwater.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
He can give me a call also tomorrow or Monday.
All right,
If-
thank you.
That might be easier. Yeah.
I think because I tried to get a text from him with the dimensions. I have some, but I'm not exactly sure. It's saying 5 by 8 times 10 by 6 times 2 by 8 deep. This is just coming from Jack, but
Yeah. It's a
something
2
like that
foot,
would work. Yeah.
probably the Shea shallow pit. It's 2 feet, 24 inches. So
Just have him send that to you in email. Chuck, that's okay?
yeah, that would be fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you,
All right,
everyone.
thank you very much.
Thank
Knowing
you.
that, Anika, how are you?
Well, he's got 4 feet from top of ground to the wetland surface. He's got 4 feet. So if he's installing something 8 feet, it's more than half submerged. So it just needs to be thought through in the right infiltration. So I'm just saying the right design has to be put there. And I'm not saying it has to be more costly for the applicant,
What I'll
but
do
it
is,
has to be the right design that's not
Okay.
going to be inundated all the time. Because then it's not doing what it's supposed to be doing.
Right. Okay.
yeah, I'll get a hold of
Okay.
Jack and after the dimensions get to me and we can talk it over and then I'll loop in the commission.
Okay. Thank you.
I know he can pick a good one. I just want to make sure that the good one is chosen.
You too.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks.
All right, moving on to old new business. Or Chuck, I guess, is there order that we want to go in specific? I know we've got
So we
two
have
people
Thor and Michael Doppler here. That's 128 Fairchild. That, I mean, to me, someone's time, that might be the easiest to take up first.
I think that's the right way to go. So, where's 128 Fairchild?
Michael Doppler and Thor.
Oh, got it. Plant. Okay, plant
Yeah.
change.
Yeah, the plan. Oh yeah, down the bottom. Everything's in old new business now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. I didn't see that. All right. So plan change for 270-0718 map 45 lot 2 128 Fairchild Drive. Doppler and Thor. So Chuck, you want to give this is just a minor plan change. Maybe Thor, do you want to, or the applicant, do you want to describe what's being proposed here?
Hey, why don't I start off? I'll start off, Thor. Mike.
Go ahead, Chuck.
So this 128 Fairchild came to the commission a year or so ago, and for a failing retaining wall in the back of the house. Let me pull up the plan. And the commission went through this, and then they were going to terrace off, put terrace on the back side of the house to create some lawn area. And I think that project, and then redo the porch that's out there. So the deck, and this is what we approved before. So now it's been discovered that this wall right along the driveway here needs some attention. So they're proposing to replace this existing retaining wall. They're also proposing to replace this existing pathway to the front of the house. And then this patio area is almost outside of the 100-foot buffer zone, but they're proposing to install that. So this is new, and the rest are existing, more like repairs. And I think the commission's been out there, maybe not some of the new members, but the older members know that this is a very tight house, very close to the wetland. This house and that one next to it are extremely close, within 25 feet or so of the wetland. All this planting is part of a mitigation project for the work and for some trees that this was our first experience that the trees for this project were just cut and dropped into the back wetland area instead of being taken out by a crane. It's just something to remember moving forward on tree removal. That's what I have about this project. And I asked Thor and Michael Doppler to come in and explain it to the commission because, you know, it's replacement, but they can give an update on the project that's going on with the retaining wall and the back area. Mike? Or Thor or Michael Doppler? Does someone want to take over? Do you guys unmuted?
Chuck, sorry about that. I tried to unmute myself, but I was unable to at the beginning there.
Same issue I had, Thor. So
yeah, sorry about
we
that.
are both here.
I felt
Great.
like I was trapped in a nightmare or something.
That's what we try to do here and on Zoom meetings, yeah.
But yeah, Thor Akerley from Williams and Sparages. Chuck summarized the project well. We were before you in 2019 for the regrading of the backyard and everything associated with that, which included a pretty thorough planting plan, a paver patio, retaining wall. The idea was just to give Michael and his family a somewhat of a usable backyard here. Yeah, as Chuck mentioned, at this point, the retaining wall along the, I believe it's the southern direction of the driveway, right up in there, that is shaded there just to show you the section that Michael would like to replace. But that has been showing signs of failure. And while the order is active, we thought, and Chuck thought too, that it would be best just to reach out to the commission, file a minor plan change, submit a letter, just showing, you know, a new wall within the same identical footprint, no change, just along that driveway to provide a more stable final solution while there is an active permit here. There's a detail on the bottom right of the plan. Most of this is less than 4 feet and doesn't require a detail or a building permit, but a small section of the wall is just over 4 feet high. So this just shows in a little bit more detail how the wall would look. It's really just field stones, which are mortared with concrete, and then just a gravel base behind it to allow water to pass through and not create any voids or spaces between those field stones. Out front, Michael was hoping to replace the existing walkway, also within the same footprint, within the area where a lot of those buffer zone plantings were proposed along Fairchild Drive. And then the final piece of this letter was just, and plan change, was that bluestone granite patio area out front. That's kind of a flatter portion of the property. And what Michael's hoping to do there is just have a nice sitting area. The kids like to play in the cul-de-sac up there to the left with their friends, and that provides just an area to kind of be able to view them and sit and enjoy the neighborhood a little bit. And that's, of course, all within existing landscaped or lawn areas at this point, and is partially outside of the buffer zone.
Yeah, so that part of that is halfway out of the jurisdictional area. That's the 100-foot line right there. Okay.
Yep. So with that, if you have any questions for us or Michael, we're happy to answer.
I don't have any questions. I'll open it up to the commission. We can start from the bottom this time. Scott or Martha, do you guys have any questions?
Would the bluestone paving area, the sitting area, have gaps between the stones so the water could run in between them, or would it be a whole impervious area?
It would have gaps between the stone, but would likely be filled with sand, but it would be pervious in a technical sense. But more to the point, that area actually sits above ledge. So it's ledge that is a fairly flat section of ledge. So we'd be working within the existing slope of the ledge and putting the gravel base on top of the ledge.
Okay, thanks.
I don't have any questions.
John or Dave?
No, I don't have any questions.
None from me.
And Carl or Anika?
I was just trying to find quickly the square footage of the patio. What was the?
I think we had it in the letter.
Yeah.
It's relatively small.
Yeah.
Give me one second. And
140 square feet approximately.
Okay. Yeah. So that is okay.
Very small.
I don't think there's
Yeah,
much.
it's in the
There's not
letter.
much water coming off of that. So
Yeah.
I don't think I have any other questions. No.
Anika?
Yeah, so I see sort of that like cloud-like squiggly line around where the proposed bluestone granite patio area is going to be. So what is that patio going to be built on? You said it was lawn, but is there any shrubs or trees that patio would displace?
No, mostly weeds today. There is some shrubs there, but I don't think they're native in nature, to be honest with you. I'm happy to use my phone app to identify the plant species that's there, but that area actually doesn't drain very well, and really just grows weeds.
I'm sorry. That's hard.
It's the toughest part of our lawn, in all honesty, in the front, because of the ledge that's directly underneath it. So it's one of the reasons we actually want to replace the lawn area there with patio.
Yep. You know, just, I mean, this is not, I don't have any other questions, but you know, this is almost like I'm not saying this as like it's influencing my decision, but if you ever were curious, I'm sure there's a lot of native ground covers that if you ever wanted to explore planting native species, you might find some interesting native plants that actually tolerate shallow bedrock. So it's just something to consider. I just wanted to mention it.
Definitely something to consider. It's not the only area of the lawn that when we graded the yard, we removed a significant amount of ledge. But up in the front area of the yard, there's still a few areas that aren't really deep enough to grow much outside of native plants. So I'd be happy to take a list and look at adding some of those elsewhere on the property.
Yeah, and sometimes you can go to certain nurseries. I've gone to Mahoney's every once in a while, and you ask somebody, they have a specialist there who knows a lot about natives, and you know, you can say, hey, I got this trouble area. Do you have some suggestions on what I could try? And you know, and I don't know. So just mentioning it.
All right.
So
I don't have anything. Chuck, do you have anything?
yeah, I was just going to ask, with this part of the project being added to, when do you think you'll be finished? And are you okay with your permit, or does that need to be extended?
So
Yeah. Sorry. You go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was going to let Thor comment on the permit timing. So the majority of the project, we finished the back and the side yard. The front planning plan we had approved, we actually didn't do just due to budgetary constraint. And we probably won't end up doing the whole front replanning. So we completed the work in October, end of October 2019, kind of perfect timing given the situation we were in last year. It worked out really well. But throughout that time period, I had followed up with Thor and with Greg in reference to the as-built timing, and their expectation was that you guys would want to see at least a full season of plant survival before we tried to close the permit out. So we waited until this year to try to close it out. And with this additional work, as soon as that is complete, we would look to close the permit out.
Yep. And we'd have until the 3 years from the date of issuance would be next June 2022. And it's, please correct me if I'm wrong, but the intention is, of course, to apply for a COC before then. But I believe the Permit Extension Act has extended permits by roughly a year now. But the intention is certainly to submit as soon as this work is done, according to what Michael's told us.
Thank you for that update. Okay, sounds like everything administrative-wise is in order. So back to the minor plan change. I can't hear you, Mike.
Thank you, Chuck. All right, if I don't hear any other comments or questions, do I hear a motion on the minor plan change?
Danica, I'd like to make a motion to approve the minor plan change as discussed tonight.
Second.
Michael Flynn in favor?
Danica Scanlon in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
David Connett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Todd Keith in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Great. So just
All right.
from
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you, Mr. Doppler. Thank you, sir.
administrative question. So with the existing order in place, that means I can begin work as soon as the contractor is ready then?
Oh, yeah.
Or-
Yes.
Correct. Perfect.
Uh,
Okay.
I'll send the paperwork to you, but there's no appeal period, so you can move forward.
Okay. Thank you very much.
All right. Have a good night, guys.
You too.
Okay. All right, we can move back up to the top. Then
I would
Go ahead,
suggest that's going to take a while. We can just cruise through some of these other ones. It might be a little easier to get through a few. And then, so I'm going to start from the bottom and just let you know that John Tilton contacted me, and he said that he's working with Michael Rivers on this plan. He was going to send me a continuance request, which I did not receive. But the last I heard, he might have forgotten that he's, so Williams and Sparagis are working with Michael Rivers to come up with a plan that fixes the stream bank and puts everything back together. They'll present it to the commission. They couldn't make this meeting, and they intend to make our next meeting in April. There is
contact.
Yeah. So I don't know if anyone has any questions about that. Nothing. The erosion control is still in place. At our last DPW meeting, we asked the DPW if they wanted to be involved in it, and I think we ended up just saying we'll send them the plans so that they can review. So they're really leaving it in our hands, but I will make sure that they see the plans and at least give an approval on that. So, any questions? If not, I will move on to the next thing, which is going up the list is a partial certificate of compliance. Now, we don't often give out partials, and when I say we, I mean, you know, as I've been here since my time here in Reading, I haven't seen many, and usually they're associated with old orders of conditions that have to do with subdivisions. And there's major pieces missing that the DPW isn't signing off on because the curbing's not right or something's broken. And if you back that up, the Conservation Commission supported that, and they didn't give a certificate of compliance. But we're many years down the road now, and this request for a partial certificate of compliance at 38 Gray Coach Road was reviewed, and there's no structures on this property. It was just part of the subdivision, and it's quite old. And when I looked at the house, it looked fine. There was nothing that I thought from the old order of conditions wasn't done. And so I recommend, and I said that in my email, that I will recommend that we issue this partial certificate of compliance for 270-0140. So, Mike, you can take it from here. Yeah.
I'll make a motion to issue a partial certificate of compliance for DB number 270-0140, 38 Gray Coach Lane.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Michael Flynn in favor?
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
David Connett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Hopkins in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
The next item I have on this old and new business is the DOA for One Veterans Way. This is from our last meeting, and the commission approved this. And we had talked about different ways to write it, but the applicant wanted to hold off and talk to the engineering department. So I did follow up with Ryan yesterday, and he said that he's not going to allow the owner to put his fence on the easement. There's a fence on the easement, and they're going to work out something where, I don't know, the easement fence, they're able to meet. But on this one, 11 Veterans Way, and I think it was Luke, and he needs to contact me with the plan that shows the fence on his property and off the easement, and then I can write that determination of applicability. So I think Mike, so there's the monthly meeting to discuss with the DPW department. If we give a follow-up on that. Is that correct? That wasn't from, I think it was. So we did it last week. So we had a monthly meeting, and a couple things came up with the DPW department. We just talked about, we usually talk about what the Conservation Commission is doing, not so much what the DPW department is doing. But we wanted to ask them this time what they're doing for Arbor Day. And so Mike Hannaford will be planting a tree, and he'll give me the locations. I think one of them might have been at Town Hall, in the front of Town Hall, but he'll give me the location, and it would be good if a couple of the commission members could show up for that. It's the last Friday of April. My recollection was that what we were talking about. And we were also asked by our liaison, Karen Herrick, to show up and to be part of Arbor Day. And next year, I think that maybe we could try to do something just the commission. And, maybe with the tree warden too, but maybe if we had two things on two separate areas in town, then more would be done for Arbor Day. That may be it. So did Arbor Day.
We also, what I thought was helpful, so we talked about the enforcement on Pearl Street, and, aside from keeping them engaged, we just talked about make sure that they knew that if a big storm came through, that everybody just had their attention to that area in case something happened. As far as the review process, they had just said our usual stick with Ryan and work that out. There were two other items, Chuck, that I felt like we discussed. One was like a RDA for light maintenance, I guess I'll call it. We have to hear of some of the channels or cleaning out sticks. I forget exactly what it was, but they were talking about potentially setting that up similar to the road program. That they come in each year and say, this is what needs to get paved, here's where it is, kind of walk through those sites with you. I think what you typically do on the roads is you go around with Brian and just say, like, here's this area, here's where erosion control should be. And then there was just a continued discussion about the removal of stuff, I guess, from wetland areas by a member in town in different areas, and kind of how they to deal with that, and just kind of keeping up with where those locations are. This is a common thing that we've had. This is Mr. Oliver has been removing, trash, junk from the wetland areas, and at times it's been very helpful. At other times it's created some disturbance in the wetland areas, and the DPW and the commission has just been talking about best ways to approach making sure that we limit the impacts of that. And it's just been an ongoing discussion as those areas get addressed. I think that was it that we talked about. Chuck or Martha, you guys can.
I'm just going to add something real quick.
Yeah.
The stream, whatever that ends up being called, cannot be an RDA. It's going to have to. Yeah, it's so the reason why the roads are an RDA is because it's like previously disturbed. So we're trying to find a path forward for the town to have a program like the paving program, where they come to us once a year and they say, these are the streets we want to pave. So in that sense, it's the same, where they'll say, we want to clean out, which doesn't include dredging, between this street and that street, and it's this long. And we're working on a process to get that to happen. But I don't think that the DEP would accept an RDA for that.
Okay.
And I don't think I presented it to the DPW as that either. So, but I understand where that came from, because the street program is an RDA, and that's actually that's actually going to come in. We're going to see that in 2 meetings, the street program, repaving program. So they'll be here presenting that. So Arthur, I don't know if you had anything else. No, then I'll just fill in her time and say that, John Oliver is one of these guys that, the stuff he's pulling out of the wetlands is incredible. Like, what a machine this guy is. He's like Hercules or something like that. The amount of stuff this guy can pull out, and a request was made to not have it in the wetlands, to bring it out to the street so it was easier for the DPW to make it and to pick it up. And he did that. And, he's only in these areas for a little bit of time. I've gotten to know him since the Millet incident. And, right now, I think the volume that he's bringing out and cleaning up, it's not just wetland area. He does wherever trash is. And it's not just trash, it's cinder blocks, it's boards. There was fencing, it was new fence too. It's like someone just took down their fence, knew of a road, and just dumped it out of their truck. When John brought it to the street and identified it for the DPW, and they came down and picked it up. So it's hard to, I think the best thing to do is to just know John and to work with John and to, see if we can keep them cleaning and not altering wetlands. And I haven't seen that since the Millet project. So, so that's all I would add to that part.
Thanks, Chuck. All right.
So do you want to do the tree now? The trees at 1457?
Yeah, 1457 Main Street, tree removal.
Yeah. So I don't know who went out to this.
I went out to the 1457 Main Street. I went out actually 2 times, and neither time the resident was there. I did look at all the trees that were that had a ribbon around them, however. And I know that I talked to one of the adjacent neighbors, and he had related to me the woman that lives in the house, her concerns for the trees. So, but I did look at them.
Yeah, so I think she had, so in the front here is Elke's letter to the commission identifying the trees that she would like to be removed. I would also let you know that that house was built in the 20s. So it's not the same where a house was there before the trees, well, when the trees were tall. So the house has been there a very long time. The trees are closer. Can you see this?
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Here's the trees.
Okay. I don't think I saw this. I didn't think we had Mike Hannaford's thing yet.
No, that came with the, that was on Friday morning when I sent out the distribution, identified as 1457 Main. So it's confusing, and I was confused by this too, because they both start out with Elke's letter. Elke sent us a letter, and then this starts out with her letter, but you have to scroll through.
I think that's what I did. I think I just saw, I was like, oh, I've already looked at Elke's letter. Okay.
Yeah. There's a picture of I guess that's it. I thought there was a picture where you could see the flags on the trees. Maybe this is it. I don't know.
I could see it on one of those, the last one there.
Last one. Okay.
Right there. The pink ribbon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right here. I see that. But it's this tree, it's that tree, it's this tree, it's this tree back here. Right. There's more blah, 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 blah.
I see him this on those here. 4. I see it on the one that's surrounded by that.
I should have got hazard pay for putting a ribbon on that tree. But that was tough. I almost gave up a couple times. So Mike is saying, if you want to go through this. There's the third tree, the first tree, he went through this again. I don't know if the commission went through this or you want to go through this and then discuss it at our next meeting and go out and check it out. I don't know. I don't know if we took the time to review this, why we couldn't kind of move forward. So, but it's up to you, Mike.
No, I think we just review it. I don't see any reason to hold up. I think people have seen what they've seen if you've had a chance to get out there. I did what I. Okay.
Okay, so this tree, yeah. So tree one. Oh, go ahead, Mike. You can do this. I'll
on the original, the first time that we got a scale from Mike, he had kind of, I think, described his rating system, right? What is 1 and what is 5? Is 1 the best and 2 is
5's the worst. On a scale from 1 to 5 for potential hazard, tree 1 is a 2, meaning not much hazard. So okay. 5 is a tree that the town would, I believe, I'll check with Mike, but if he calls it a hazard, the town would be responsible. I think that's unclear. We run into things that are unclear because it's a new policy. So,
yeah, I think on the last letter, he had kind of given a summary, and maybe it's just like making sure that summary is the same. But
no, I asked him to leave the summary off, but I didn't. he should have reminded us of 1 to 5, but
Yeah.
obviously we know the trees aren't, if it's, you know, it seems to me the trees are not falling down, they're pretty straight, and the description helps you also understand that 2 means that it's a healthy tree.
It's a healthy tree.
Mm-hmm. So 5's going to be the worst, and one's going to be the best. So
Just as a relative, because this is so close to that area, to give some context to, because I did pull up his old. I guess he didn't list there. At the neighboring site, 1447, where we had evaluated 9 trees, all the hardwoods, the oaks and maples, were similar. They were 2s, and I think Mike had issued a 4 for like a lot of the pines.
So looking at this review by the town tree warden, he identifies 5 trees that he rates like a number 2, which is essentially non-hazardous, leave it. And one of them, tree number 5, is a 4. So that's a very strong recommendation that it's hazardous. And then 2 other trees are 3.
Just so you understand, 4 does not need to be taken down. It's not considered hazardous.
Oh, see, I thought 1 was,
5
it
is.
doesn't have to be. Oh, okay.
So unless it's a 5, it's not.
Yeah.
It doesn't have immediate danger.
So none of these
Anika,
have
just from-
immediate danger.
Yeah,
Correct.
and some are just almost normal.
So I
it
guess-
does say 1 out of 8
yeah.
is a higher risk, but I think that's relative to the others. And I think this is where this helps, Anika, is the pines that we ultimately said, you know, maybe they're not a huge risk at 1447 were 4. Those were also rated a 4. So this would be similar to those pines that we said, yeah, no, not immediate level. It's the level 5 that is like, this needs to come down.
Okay, yeah, that's helpful. So none of these trees are evaluated by the tree warden as needing emergency
Yes,
removal.
that's correct. That's
So,
correct.
but 3 of them, if I consider all the trees he ranked 3 or 4, 3 of them, he's saying, well, could be a problem.
Sometime in
And
the
I guess,
future. Yeah.
and I guess those were the ones that I think would warrant the most discussion. And that's trees number 3, number 5, number 8.
Well, 8,
That's what I'm getting out of the letter.
so yeah, I think I read the letter, and again, this is all kind of like a new situation. Mike is just adding a layer to our discussion. So now we know what the tree warden thinks. These trees, and we also know that the tree warden in the town is not going to pay for this work, because it says that clearly in the
Right.
policy. So now this turns to the Conservation Commission based on their background and information like this information from the tree warden, we make a decision about whether the trees stay or go, or we need planting, or, you know, just taking them down is enough. This cost the cost doesn't never comes to the Conservation Commission, because we don't have money to do this kind of stuff. But we do offer the homeowner the permission to remove the trees themselves. I mean, that was the possibility that the policy came up with.
So I'll make, I guess I can start. I'll make a simple piece of this, and Nika, to your point, to start with the two trees that are a 3 and a tree that's a 4. You know, consistent with what we had done at a different site, and knowing where these are relative to the trees and how close they have gotten, how big these trees have got. I don't have any issues with those 3 trees coming down. I think we've seen this area. There's an understory. There's potential for future growth. You know, I think those trees in my mind are, you know, it'd be consistent with the decision that we've made. The neighbors and are identified as greater risk and are probably older. I don't have an issue with those coming down. The other 5 that are rated as a 2, I can't remember what we ended up doing at 1447. I think we tried to push hard to try to keep those because they were significantly less risk. But I know there was just so much discussion there. Was it just pines that came down at 1447?
I believe so.
Yeah. And so in general, I think my tree number, if other trees are removed in the area of tree number 1, the risk could be higher for failure. In the pictures, can you identify? So let's start with the 3 that were worse, right? Do we know which one is which here?
I went from left to right.
Left to right.
I know that this one here is the elm. So I came back and got this one. But it's like 1, 2, 3, 4 going down this way.
So that's number 8.
Yeah.
All right. So that one is one of the ones that I've personally said I don't have an issue with. Any other thoughts? People think I'm crazy. People want more. People want less.
It's difficult for me to look at the trees, the numbers of the trees there, but I did see some of the trees that had split trunks. You know, I thought were fairly weak in the Constitution, and the one that I guess called the elm, that I'm sure when they get a heavy wet snowstorm, I bet the tip of that tree touches the ground. I wouldn't be a bit surprised at that because of the lean that that tree already has. But and that's also right on the stone wall. But you know, a couple of the trees that were pretty straight and tall, and they seemed to have vigorous root systems, and they were close to the house, but I didn't see them particularly as what I would consider hazard trees. But the ones with the split trunks, I did. And I couldn't identify those other than if I was standing on site, because there were no numbers on the trees at that point. And to be honest with you, I don't recall where they are or were.
All right. Any other thoughts? I mean, if we're not sure or there's some confidence, we want to, I think it may be helpful to take, now that we have we got Mike's evaluation on Friday, do we just take that out and actually use that with each tree? I hate to continue to drag this out, but if we're not sure, Dave, which one is which, or which ones we think are acceptable or which ones we would prefer to stay, I think that's worth the time. It's worth that extra site visit.
If I was standing on site, I would tell you which ones I thought needed to come down.
Yeah.
But we also know what's happened in the past, with trees that were identified as trees that weren't problems, they fell down anyway. So sometimes that's not something that we can, altruistically depend upon.
No.
So
agreed.
I could contact the owner at 1547 Main Street, let her know that the commission would invite her to the next meeting, and then the commission can look at the trees again now that they have Mike's information and a bit of discussion. We know that 3 are going to come down, and then everyone just can get back out there. Let me see here. Yeah.
Yeah.
From what I see is that, you guys can, you could also, through me or you're on your own, you could contact the applicant and try to arrange a time to go there, because I know that her email is on the letter. So.
Are the trees that are on site there, are they marked for the numbers?
Yeah.
They are marked on the trees?
Each tree has a ribbon, pink ribbon on it, and each tree has a number on it.
Okay, that would be very helpful.
And do we think that the numbers correspond with the numbers that Mike used in his letter?
Me and Mike met out at the site together, and we discussed this. And after Mike left, I told him that I would mark each tree. And he said that he would come back and do the evaluation. So I know that the trees are marked before Mike did his eval.
But just to also, as one step further, if we were to go out to meet with the homeowner, I think it also at this point should be made clear to her that since the tree warden did not identify any of the trees as a 5, that the town would not be incurring any of the cost to take any of those trees down, and if you wanted to take it down, that there would be at her own expense.
That's you're right, Dave. All that's true, and that's something I can tell people right away, because as a commission, we've already agreed to that. Right. So I don't have to wait for you to make a determination. The only determination I need from the commission that would be an additional would be if they thought that for some reason they wanted some planting of trees in this area, or any area. So that's why I would wait to to tell somebody. I mean, get the whole information from the Conservation Commission, letting them know that not only would they be paying for the trees, but there's replanting that needs to happen also. I'm not suggesting it for this one. I don't have an opinion on this one here, but fortunately, you can look at this, and you can look at the one next door and see if enough vegetation has grown up to satisfy you and what you thought about leaving the forest to do what it wants over there. I mean, it's to me, it's starting to look like a big open area.
So, question then, just as a follow-up, is the homeowner aware of the fact that if these trees were to be taken down, that they would be at her expense. Has she been informed of that at this point?
So no, the commission didn't. No, we didn't come. The evaluation and the discussion hasn't moved along. But she did say that she had already got she's right next door to 1447.
Right.
So she has already got an estimate for the trees to come down. Okay, without saying it, So.
But it's one thing to get an estimate. It's another thing to say, yes, I understand that if these trees were to come down, that I have to pay for them. I'm just not. Well, I guess the question I should have been probably a little bit more specific. Has she been informed as to what the number identification that has been given to each of these trees by the tree warden and what that number means?
I haven't shared that with her. So I don't know if Mike has shared that with her.
So perhaps she isn't perhaps she doesn't know that the tree warden has identified these trees as trees that are not to the point as to be identified as hazardous.
No, I met with her once on my own, and Mike has also met with her, and I'm sure that just part of just being open as much as possible. I don't, and again, Mike's not going to leave any tree that's a hazard in place. So she seemed to be aware of it, but no, I didn't tell her, and I can tell you I didn't tell her for a couple of reasons. One is because the commission, the commissions makes the decision. Secondly, the policy is brand new, and we didn't get our eval from Mike until I think it was like I sent out the packet on Thursday. I think I got it Wednesday.
Yeah, so as of the Tuesday DPW meeting, he was saying.
I got it Thursday. I sent out the packet Friday. So again, I wasn't in town on Thursday, and but as we move forward, these things will be a little more streamlined, and the process will be more nailed down. It seems odd, but I know that I have the tree policy on the conservation division page for anyone who wants to see that. And I don't know if DPW has put it up there, but if anyone asks, I could send it. I would send it to them. But I felt like she understood that the commission was going to make an evaluation, and that she had gotten her estimate already, and she knew that 1447 paid for their trees, and she would end up having to pay for hers. That was what I got from my site visit with Elke.
Okay.
I think it's worth. I guess what I see is the best path forward. I think it's worth letting her know that that the evaluation by the tree warden has been performed, that the commission is going to go out and look and just make some confirmation, but at the very least that that none of them were deemed hazardous, because at least that gives her enough update, and to Dave's point, whether or not she, there may have been a part of her that felt like was holding out hope that they were all fives and that they would all be taken down, or now that there's no fives, that well, maybe 3 just need to come down because that's about my price point and my comfort level. And I think that's worth having that discussion, making sure that she's informed of that and having that discussion with her, and then also giving the commission the opportunity to look at the other 5 or whatever number it is out there.
And when you're out there,
I was going to say, that's the best path forward.
It sounds clear, and I just to get a little more information out there, is that when I met with her, when Mike met with her, he didn't do his eval. I think we both went out there twice. He didn't do his eval with the applicant there, so we wouldn't have known if they were 5s or 1s or 2s to tell her anything until last Thursday. So
Yeah, no, so I think that helps give her kind of an update of where it's at and what the Mike's findings were, and at least sets her on the path of like where this is headed, and then gives us some time to look at these with Mike's evaluation in hand and say, okay, what's our decision, and if we are gonna have 3 down or 6 down, or allow for 6 to come down or 3 to come down, or allow for all of them to come down, does there need to be some sort of restoration? I think that's that piece is on us to come to the next meeting prepared to kind of make a decision on.
I think it wouldn't. Yeah, I don't. It seems to me like everyone's saying, "Oh, the understory, the understory." It would be, it's a burden to pay for the trees and, spend an extra $300 on a 3-inch caliper, 10 to 15 foot tall tree. But I think the commission should look into what else could kind of populate the forest floor while we wait for, these other trees to start growing in. There might be something that's inexpensive that we could just say, here's a different list for this situation. And, that's what we found works out good. Like, blueberry bushes or something like that, they, we say that a lot, but actually they work in a lot of good places. I don't know, maybe Carl has something he could add to that conversation about less expensive, smaller shrubs and trees.
I think the trouble with the less expensive, smaller trees is that in some ways they have a better chance of surviving. But at the same time, there's just so much, like when we were at, I forget the site visit last week, there's just so much competition and root competition and compaction back there from the forest floor that shrubbery is almost easier to take than trees. So I'm starting to learn that there is that component that is difficult to reclaim this sort of existing forest edge minus naturally doing it. Kind of contemplating that on these site visits. So, but I could come up, I could look into some things. So.
Yeah, and I think so. I had gone out just to see it, and frankly, I don't know that I was paying attention to numbers. I just wanted to get a feel for what was there. I think what I was struck by was that 14, the neighboring property, and I mean, I think Chuck, you said it right. It's like we're creating an open area a little bit, and I think I would be concerned with just not doing, getting into this habit of not doing anything and just presuming that the understory is gonna take over without any sort of intermediate support.
Yeah, I mean, Carl, if you could let us know when you're going out there, maybe we can, a couple commissioners would be available also, and we could discuss, take a real good look at what's coming in. I think me and Martha did it, and there were some pine trees growing up, and it didn't look bad. And the larger pines are coming out, but there's some deciduous trees there also. So the open area, it seems to me it's not the same as 1447, where there was really nothing underneath that was sizable. Mm-hmm. So, but anyways, it would be great. Yeah, you can just let us know Monday or Tuesday, whenever you figure out your schedule.
Okay.
Thanks.
All right. Any other items with this, Chuck?
No, not on this. I have my notes. I'll get a hold of the homeowner tomorrow, and I'll send her all the information we have and give her as much information as I can about our discussion tonight and invite her to the next meeting.
Great. All right, administrators report. Down poll.
I know. Oh my God, huh? Guys, no one got back to me, but there was a down poll, and which has happened in the past. Joe Jamillo has been in front of the commission a couple of times about polls. There was one actually right at RMLD. It wasn't a poll, there was just a leak. And there was one off Van Norton, and I can't remember the name of the street, but there was some cleanup. So on this one here, here we go. This is what we're looking at. This is D Street. And at 3:50 p.m. on Friday, March 28th, 2021, on the eastern side of D Street, off Livy Ave, a pole. I'm just going to read this. I'm not going to figure out what I'm reading. Hold on a second. East side of D Street off Libby Avenue released approximately 24 gallons of non-PCB material, mineral oil fluid to the roadway surface along the side of the roadway and approximately 25 to 35 feet of wetland soil beyond the eastern dead end of D Street road pavement. It was not necessary to report the release to the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection under the Massachusetts Contingency Plan, although the release was discussed with someone at MADEP, and they felt that this wasn't a release that needed to be written up in any way. So I did have a conversation on the phone with Joe, who explained what had happened. A truck had smashed into this pole and it came down, and he's saying 24 gallons of oil went down to the end, and he was waiting for test results. And you can see on the plan where they did their soil tests along here and along the back, and they're going to have to do some soil removing along these streets and in the back here. So given that, I asked that a plan come up for mitigation for the soil removal and have it reviewed by the Conservation Commission. And I also asked that, this plan was developed by a professional. So he's going to work with Greg Hockmith at Williams and Sparagis to develop a plan. And I also believe that this will be ready by our next meeting. So the second meeting in April. Tomorrow is Thursday, and they're going to be removing some soil at the site tomorrow, and they'll have to test it. And then if everything's okay, they'll be putting clean soil back on top, and then we'll be looking at a plan in the future at our next meeting once it's approved. That's what I know about this. It seems to be a little bit slowed down because the laboratory didn't get back with test results when they promised. That was sometime last week, and they only came in now. So he understands what needs to be removed and where, and from that they can start building their mitigation plan. I know that Anika must have something to say about this.
Yeah. No, I have watched your emails. I have seen them, and I do have it on my list to reach out to the LSP. And I will send out an email tomorrow morning to him. I've spoken to him in the past regarding the other transformer release. And I think it does have to be reported, but however, the timeline between when he knows about it and when it has to be reported, that might be like 120 days. So we might be inside of this notification timeline. As far as I can tell, it needs to be reported, but I don't know if some of that was, sometimes it's not so clear what the details are. So I'm happy to reach out to him. I'll do that tomorrow. I might swing by just to sort of inspect what they're doing. When it comes right down to it, any release to the environment, whether it's reported to DEP or not, still needs to be cleaned up. The responsible party isn't like exempt. They can't just leave contamination out there, whether DEP knows about it or not. So yeah, I will follow up, but
Yeah, he's offering, he keeps every email. He says, if you have any questions, please call.
Yep.
I know you have some background in this, and I did.
Yep.
I
And
did
I have
talk to him about you, and he's okay from hearing from you too. So.
Yeah, I mean, I know we don't want to see this in the wetlands, and so Chuck, so it sounds like they haven't actually removed any of the soil that is off the pavement yet.
They had a crew there the day of the spill, and they were containing it, but Landers Road, was that where it was? Am I saying? I don't know. Was that
D Street? Oh,
remember the one
yeah.
at Landers?
Yeah.
And they had all that absorbing material in these. That's what they had.
Yeah, and that was a slightly different situation because I think it went to a drain.
It did, but on the other side,
a drain, and so. Yeah.
And then out the other. Yeah, so it was different.
Discharge.
And they were talking about jetting out that culvert.
Yeah.
So, but that's what they had, and they were trying to contain the oil, which was 24 gallons, and it seems like that would be easy based on the distance and what would stop flowing after a while. I mean, all 24 didn't make it to the end, so.
And it's not a very significant slope out there. It's fairly flat. I mean, there might be some slope to that road, but it's not like, it's not one of the hills in Reading. But so how close to the edge?
So he said 25 feet from the edge of the pavement is what they're looking to remove.
Yeah,
that's a
and
lot.
Where's the wetland?
Right there at the edge of the pavement.
That's the actual BVW line?
Yeah, you're gonna find it right at the edge.
Okay.
I mean, to be honest with you, I'll say within 5 feet, but it's pretty much right there.
Do you know if there was standing water out there?
I do not. I do not.
I'll talk to him tomorrow.
It was flat, but there was a stream behind it. And but what was in front of it, was there any standing water? I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I'll try to get a couple questions answered, and I can't report back in an email to everybody because that's considered discussing it. So I will send it on to you, Chuck, especially because you're getting continuous updates, and I can report at the next meeting. And if anybody wants to also be involved, sure, we could have individual conversations about it. But we can't deliberate. Just want to be clear.
Does the commission want to see a permit for this work, or are you okay with Joe's experience and Greg Hoffmick's experience in replanting this area, and just to be updated and review the plans, and no formal permit? I'm wondering. Sometimes there's a permit. Yeah.
I will speak up and say I would like to see a really good summary memo with all the data in it, and to understand where the contamination went and whether surface water was impacted and how far the contamination actually went into the wetlands. Because, yeah, I think we're going to need something on this.
So it sounds like you are going to make time to talk to Joe. Can you hold off on, I mean, let's hear from the rest of the commission, but hold off on your decision until you talk to him, and then we'll find out if we need a permit. Unless the rest of the commission thinks we need a permit. I've seen it go both ways. That's why I'm asking. Sometimes it's just make people feel comfortable, show that you're doing the right thing. We're not going to need a permit.
I'd like to see, I think, Anika, maybe if you can have the conversation, I think that'd be helpful before we say it just needs to have a permit. Because I mean, it was 24 gallons. Maybe we, after you have the conversation, say, no, this wasn't a whole lot. Maybe the removal that they're planning isn't a whole lot, and this is simple. Otherwise, maybe walk away from that conversation saying, no, they plan on taking out, it's a big area, or there's signs of sheens or whatever it is, and it may expand as they are doing their work, and so therefore we want a permit. I think my suggestion would be to wait until we have that conversation. On a very minor note, Chuck, we should tell them that I think they've got a typo on their composite sample. So they sent us an email following up saying CS4 and CS5 came back with indications of contamination. There's 2 areas that are labeled CS5. I think, but CS4 and CS5 were both the 2 areas nearest the wetland. I think that other one is meant to be CS2.
I can get clarification on that when I speak with him.
A minor note, but just so, all in line with making sure we've got a clear memo and plan and details identifying what's happening where.
Okay. All right.
All right. Any other items on this? No? Okay. Chuck, anything else before I go on to the administrators or older business that I might have missed?
I had a couple things to ask the commission. If you want me to do that now, I will.
Well, why don't we get through the final ones? We'll get the minutes, we'll do the minutes and all those things, and then we can hit that. So no emergency permits. We talked about the enforcement. No bills.
No bills. No bills. No.
So minutes for approval. We were sent minutes for March 10th. Does everybody have a chance to review? Did anybody have any comments? And if there's no comments, do I hear a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of March 10th.
Second.
Okay.
Michael Flynn in favor. Sorry, my headphones had an issue.
Anika Scanlon in favor.
Carl Ciccone in favor.
David Panett in favor.
John Sullivan in favor.
Todd Keith in favor.
Martha Moore in favor.
Okay.
Chuck, sorry, that was it. Go right ahead. What do you got?
I just want to ask the commission two questions. Here's the first one. This is a clump of maple trees. They're joined at the base. This is not as obvious as some, but it is a clump. When I'm in the field, is this 1 or 3 trees?
I think this is 1.
Yeah.
One.
Okay,
One.
great.
Can I ask those who say 1? I mean, I would have said 3. Why do you say 1?
Seem to be emanating out of the same crown collar in the bottom. You know, their bases of them are actually touching. And I think if you actually took and cut those down and you took a stump grinder, you'd find subterranean, they'd all be connected to the same root ball.
So they're all the same, genetically the same tree, but there are 3. I mean, you can't deny there's 3 trees coming out of it.
That's true.
So it's like in terms of above ground,
Right.
there's 3 trees.
Yep.
So that's,
I believe it. I just reiterate what I said. If you took those 3 trees down and you took a stump grinder, those 3 trees would be coming out of the same root ball.
right.
So if you have 3 daffodils that are coming up out of the same bulb, is that 3 different daffodil plants, or is it 1 coming out of the same bulb?
Right. But right.
Picking of the egg.
Right.
Well,
Right.
you could sell
I mean,
each one separately.
Yep.
I think if we were deciding whether or not to replace those with 1 tree or 3 trees, I would say for the tree policy, I would say you'd replace it with 3 trees because there are 3 substantial trunks.
Yes.
That's a different question, Martha.
Well, I don't know why Chuck was asking that question, but that would be the
No,
relevant.
that's not the question I asked, but let's think about that for a second. So the tree policy is based on 4 trees when it's administrative approval.
Yep.
So this is 4 trees. This is not 6 trees. But you want me to say, yes, you have administrative approval because you picked 4 trees. But if you do replanting for this one here, you're going to have to plant, 6 trees or 12 shrubs instead of 4 and 8. I think if you decided, oh, you would.
I would.
Yeah, I think that's a fair assessment.
It's what the overstory and the canopy is. But if you're cutting them down, I'd term them as
one,
as coming out of one root ball. But if you had an arborist that was going to come cut them down, they'd certainly charge you for 3 trees, no doubt about it.
Okay.
It's the same thing if you have a tree that's got a split trunk. Oftentimes you have a split trunk that goes right down to the base of the tree, but it's really only one. It's the same root ball. It just has 2 leaders that come up out of the same root ball.
Just wanted to make sure. Okay, here's the next question. Can you see that? This is Track Road. This is the bridge they've been working on. So I'm assuming you can see it. This wing wall is undercut on both sides. It wasn't approved as part of the permit, but the contractor or the DPW, to prevent this from being undermined and working its way down the back here, they want to put riprap right here to direct the flow in between these 2 wing walls. So here and here. This project is almost finished. In the next couple of weeks, this will all be planted on both sides. I have some pictures of the other side for you, but the question came up about dropping in some riprap right here, and before you make a decision, I'll show you what that's going to look like. Did that come up? I'm never sure. Are you looking at a new picture now?
No.
All right, let me go this way and okay, do it like that.
Okay. Okay.
That's the side of the riprap that they're using. And it would fit pretty much right in that little corner. There is like an undermining happening there. And so I would assume it would be just, you know, like a small amount, not run it down the edge like they have here.
Go ahead, Anika.
So the way I understand it is they put riprap in kind of to shore up behind the wing wall.
That's what they want
And
to do.
maybe extend past the wing wall along the slope, or no?
So hold on, they haven't done that yet. This is what they're proposing.
I
Yeah.
understand.
Okay.
But I'm just trying to get clarity on where's that riprap going? Is it just there to shore up the bank behind the wing wall as it is now?
I think you have it backwards, Anika. The bank is already eroding, and the bank is already eroded. You don't fill something in there, that wing wall is gonna, after a couple of winters of freeze-thaw cycle, that wing wall is gonna end up in the drink.
Oh, I get that. I really get that. I'm just trying to understand how much farther, like if I'm standing in the middle of the stream and I'm looking at the edge of the wing wall, standing in the middle of the stream, is the riprap going to continue down the slope a little bit? Or is it just going to be behind the wall?
Well, you can't put a vertical slope on riprap. It won't stay there.
Does that help? Is it anybody seeing this? I don't know. Mike is saying yes. That's what, with my conversation with the engineering department, this is what we were looking at. As soon as it holds itself up, obviously they need to start filling it from the bottom of the stream. So it's going to go out a little bit, but then they'll just work it in to that one area. And as you can see, if you look at the wing wall, you can see that the stream doesn't get that high. So it's pretty low where they have to keep it, but they'll probably fill the whole area in back of it.
Have they considered a more vegetation thing to hold the wall back? I mean, the slope back? Those tubes with soil in them, and then the plants grow out.
Logs.
Logs.
Anchor the soil in the slope. Is that an option?
You know, that is an option, although being, you know, we wanted them to use that as much as possible on the other side. It's really hard to get the contractors to kind of like, you know, because you can't do it with the bucket of a machine, it's harder than you think. I mean, if this was like your stream or my stream and we had the stuff and we needed to just get it in that area, we'd do it. It would take a little bit of time and we'd make it work. I can suggest that. I'm not sure that's the spot to, I mean, like that's not going to make a big difference.
So the other
where it's at.
That, Chuck, and I think your picture, the other picture that you showed is a great example of it, right? Where the core logs really add benefit. They've got them up out of the water, you know, along strips that they can kind of lay out. This is, you know, the area that you have to put that is not totally workable. You still have to create a base.
Okay. I just was asking. Yeah, I was noticing the logs there above the riprap and wondering if something like that would do it. But
yeah, now that
we need to do something to keep the wall from getting eroded behind.
It's pretty steep in that area, and they're going to have to put a couple buckets in just to bring it up to above the water level. I mean, the bridge is nice, but there's work that needs to be done. I mean, upstream and downstream is just, trees are just all over the place, and there's mud and there's sediment, and you know, there's some issues still that need to be worked on here. You know, I will tell you that the contractor was, you know, you can see the work, it really looks nice, but it was hard to have him follow the rules that we put down in the order of conditions. And I think if the DPW is doing this again, we need to insist on having an environmental monitor, having money for someone from some company to be able to come out and you know, and talk about how things should be done, and you can't move forward until, you know, things are put into place correctly. You know, it was a learning process throughout this, and I think I reached out to Mike several times. He had to come down when I wasn't available, and it was tough. This was hard, and I think that with those environmental monitor and someone else in place to kind of watch other things, the commission could concentrate on the wing wall and this area here. Although I really like how this came out. I asked them to extend it on both sides a little bit more. On this side here, it is original virgin soil. They didn't bust it up, but on the other side, there's about 2 or 3 feet that they did bust up. And I wanted to make sure that that doesn't end up getting washed into the brook. So the other side's all planted with willow. So I don't know if you can see that, but
You're still seeing your other picture.
oh, you're not seeing, where's my picture? This is the picture I wanted to see of the terraced area.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah, so there's willow in here. Just sticks. So,
Chuck, and I guess this is my overall take is, I don't have, but you know, my personal thing, I don't have an issue with the concept of putting riprap there. It's a small area. It's tough to do something else. My concern would be creep. We tend to discuss these after the fact and say, oh, I thought they were just going to put it here, or we weren't expecting it to look like this. And I think the only thing that I would want is what can we do to make sure we understand exactly where it is or exactly where it's going, or should we say, hey, can you let us know that the day that you're putting it out there? So I don't know, and at least it's on us to go. I don't know what we do. My concern is, I think I've looked at these similar items like this before and said, oh yeah, that what they're talking about makes sense. And it's a small, you know, particularly on the far side where you can see it eroding behind there. This is a slope that's on the near side here is a slope that's coming back. It's not horrible. The other one on the other side of the stream, that they need to get something in there. Filling it up with riprap is probably not that big of a deal and not that much. I just don't want to be sitting here 2 months from now being like, oh, I didn't realize they were going to put that much down.
so why don't you ask? So, you know, you're in charge. You what do you need? Just let me know.
Yeah. So I think my take would be the riprap in those areas are acceptable, provided that, you know, what I'd like to know is when they're going to be doing the work. You know, if they give us some sort of indication, I don't know, some reasonable timing ahead of it, not the morning of.
The when, who, and how.
Yep.
Do you want a drawing, or you think that's?
I don't know that we need a drawing. I don't know that. No.
And it sounds like you're saying we need to define the limits of where it'll go.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll talk about that tomorrow with the engineering department. I'd like all the commission members to get their plans out of this area again. Now that we're into the vegetation part of it, there was a little bit of discussion of where's the riprap going and where the planting is going. And I said, I'm going to get the plans and come back and talk to you guys, not you guys, but the contractors about that. So this is a good time to go down and just get your plans from this project and make sure that everything's going in as we discussed. So, because when this guy goes, he's on I hear he's on a multi-million-dollar project. Okay. And that's the next 2 weeks. Probably, you know, tomorrow's definitely they'll be back doing some more planting. All right, so I don't think I have anything else, but I'm gonna check.
I had a question about the wording of the tree policy.
Okay.
Let me just, never mind. There was a section about the tree policy where it talked about trees on town land falling onto private property and trees on private property falling onto town land. And it was sections 5 and 6 of the policy. Is that something you can easily pull up?
Yeah. See that?
Yes.
Okay. Let me bring it in. Okay, there's 5 and 6.
So section 5, the tree warden, depending on relevant circumstances, may either remove the tree in its entirety or leave it entirely or partially in place where it fell. And it occurs to me, how does that decision get made, whether to leave the tree in place where it fell? It says a town tree falls on private property. Does the tree warden get to decide to leave the tree in the person's backyard? So I wonder whether that's really what we intended to say there.
So the part that's in the person's yard, we don't have control over. So we can start making decisions once it's on our side of the property line. And it was something I thought about also. And I think I actually asked the question about, you know, they go out in this emergency and they take the tree out of someone's yard, and then we come back and say, well, we don't like, you know, how you left this on the conservation land. We'd like to have it removed. I think I got an answer that they would go back and address that for us if we felt like it wasn't cut back enough or couldn't be there because of the trail, or it was on top of some area that we wanted to protect or something like that. I didn't hear that, no, that's you, or you got to get your own saw. But if you want to give me some language, I'll write it down and add it to it and send it to Chris.
Well,
or if you want to think about it and change it later, I can send you a Word copy.
Well, I'm just thinking, give me a second, because 6 was sort of the same thing, only the other direction. Private tree falls on town property. It says the tree warden shall remove the tree back to the property line. So if it's a town tree falling on private property, maybe the language should say the tree warden shall remove the tree back to the property line in section 5 as well. And my question in section 6, is the town removing the tree that's the private tree on the private property back to the property line, or are they removing only the part of the tree that's on town property back to the property line? I'm just questioning which side of the property line the tree warden is working on.
I think when I answered that, I said that the line is a very thin area. And I mean, it's worth bringing up, because if the property line is on the very center of the stone wall, maybe that's a situation where we should ask that it goes beyond the other side of the stone wall. it's not hanging on top of the stone wall. I don't think that would cost a lot or any more money. I think that was only like 3 feet, but I think the whole thing is it's not a problem. It's just how do you want to change this, and can we show it in a track changes capacity, so I could just send that off to the DPW department.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, that might be the thing to do. I just want to understand, in both of these cases, is the town ever working on private property, or is the town only working on town property? And I'm thinking of a recent case. I think the town went onto private property to cut up the tree that was a town tree that had fallen on private property, and we went onto the private property and cut up the tree. Is that right?
That's what they'll do. That's what they do.
Okay.
And the only problem with that situation was they felt empowered to leave it on the property line, which was determined to be the top of the stone wall, which was completely unsightly, dangerous, not a good job, all those things. And I think I don't know if they do that all the time. Like, here's the property line, wherever it falls, that's all our responsibility is. I think it's a good question that comes up. I mean, if a tree falls on another stone wall, we want to let them know that, our personal feelings, it should be cut to the other side of the stone wall. But I'm not sure we have the ability to ask them that. I think there's a lot more factors than just, hey, this is how it should be. But it would be good to bring it up.
Chuck, I guess my suggestion would be, is this something that we can just take to the next DPW meeting?
Yeah.
And just say, guys, we were reading this and we're confusing ourselves with the language here. And
I would be okay if Mike just said, yeah, he's just not going to do that again. That's just not how they're going to leave any tree, on the top of a stone wall. It doesn't make any sense. And then the other question about if we're unsatisfied with how it's left on our land, how would that get handled? Maybe we could just circle back around and ask that same question again. Is that, Martha, would that be enough if we ask those questions and got some clarification?
I think so. And I'm just thinking, I guess that the clarification is when it says remove the tree back to the property line, are we removing the part of the tree that's on private property, or are we removing the part of the tree that's on town property? I'm looking at number 6 right now. So the private tree fell on town property. Are we starting on town property and working our way to the property line? I think that's what we intend. And then the property owner contacts the conservation administrator to get permission to do something about the part of their tree that fell on their land.
Yeah, we should talk about that one, because that doesn't seem, the way you just read that seems, if a tree falls down where you can remove it, that's how the Conservation Commission feels about it. I don't know why the town is out there at all. If it should be like, if a private tree falls from private, private tree falls into the conservation land, the homeowner should contact the Conservation Commission, because they're not allowed just to cut it at the property line and leave whatever part of their tree in the conservation area. But I don't understand. Mike, do you understand how we got here with number 6? Yeah, so we'll talk about number 6 too.
No, I
Martha,
almost feel like these are like backwards. To Martha's point, that it almost got like switched. Yeah, I think we just talked about it. And
I'll go down and talk to Chris and just let him know we were kind of confused. I'm not sure. Well, actually, I am sure. It's been put off a while, but the next select board meeting, isn't it the 26th of April? So there's some time.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
All right, Martha, thank you. Mike, do you know who's going to join us for the next DPW meeting?
I don't.
Can you ask?
Anybody
Is
want to join
Martha
for the
or
next
Carl
DPW
or
meeting?
whoever? Yeah.
Do we
Always.
have a date for it?
First Tuesday of the month. And I'm going to look at what that date is as soon as this gets out of the way. First Tuesday of the month is going to be the 4th. And it even says it. Yeah, DPW monthly meeting on the 4th.
Yeah, I mean, Martha, you and I have kind of gone back and forth, so I can take this next one.
Okay.
Great.
Great.
Anything
5 and
else?
6.
Hearing nothing. Do I have your motion?
Let me, before we do that, does anyone think, based on their seeing around town, are we okay to look at 22 and 18 Small Lane to see if they are okay with their certificates of compliance, because it's a lot of planting? And then also it was planting that had to be done and some repair. I'll check on that, but 53 Arcadia. We're getting right into that area where the next 2 weeks, maybe we could sign off on those, maybe within the next month. I'm not sure. Martha, Carl, you think we should wait another meeting or so to just look at the vegetation over there at Small Lane?
I don't think anything has leafed sufficiently that I would really be confident recognizing it until May.
Okay, that's what I wanted to hear. Great. I don't have anything else.
Chuck, one other. So, and maybe this is just because I got it. We got a planting plan over the weekend for 1503 Main Street. We should just put that on the list for the next agenda. Make sure that the commission reviews it.
Yeah, that's what I thought that you meant by that. If it's going to go on the next. It's going to go on the next agenda for sure, and that's. But the commission needs to look at that and see if we have the appropriate amount of mitigation for what was removed.
Yep.
So that.
All right.
Not to slow things down, but I wonder if I'm the one with all the confusion about sections 5 and 6 of this tree policy, whether it would make sense for me to do the May meeting with the DPW just so I can ask my questions.
Oh, okay.
All right. I made that change.
And then maybe Carl could do June.
Yeah.
Okay,
right.
Thanks.
Excellent. All right. Anything else? All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn.
I guess second.
Second.
All those in favor, please raise your hand. All right. Thank you very much. Have a good night.
Good night, everyone. Yep.
Bye.
Thanks.
Thanks, everyone.